Well, here's a reminder that IRS e-filing began on January 26th. Now, in 2025 alone, the IRS received over 165 million tax returns and issued more than 103 million tax refunds, with the average refund exceeding $3,100. With me is Andy Phillips, Vice President of the Tax Institute at H&R Block. So, welcome to tax season. Andy, this is your time of the year. So, what
Our
should we
time to
be
shine.
what should we be doing right now that the tax season is just open?
Right. As we get started on tax season for those folks that are ready, of course, you want to go ahead and file. Make sure you've got all your documents. But look, this is a year of a tremendous amount of change as we look at the One Big Beautiful Bill. It extended a lot of provisions from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that was passed during President Trump's first administration, but it also added a lot of new rules. And if you're not quite ready to file yet, but you do want to understand how your bottom line may be impacted, it's important to do your research right now. For example, at hrblock.com, you can go and use our calculator to get a more personalized estimate of how some of these new changes, maybe you work for tips or overtime, or you're going to be able to deduct more state and local taxes. So get a more personalized and realistic example of how your bottom line might change.
Okay, good point. Because I was just reading a survey this morning that most people have no idea how the One Big Beautiful Bill impacts them.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think, yes, if they can go to the website and kind of figure that out. I mean, if you could kind of headline it, I mean, what is the big difference? The tax for tips, or who will be most impacted by these changes?
Right. So everyone's going to probably see some little bit of impact, even if it's just from an extension and slight changes of, like I said, of excuse me, of tax rules from the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. But some folks that are going to see huge changes are folks that work for tips or who work for overtime. Just starting with overtime alone, someone who makes $60,000 a year and files single and earns $10,000 of that in overtime is looking at savings of over $1,200 just from that new benefit alone. People that pay a lot of state and local tax, think income tax and property taxes, could be a car, could be for real estate you own. You may have been taking the standard deduction, but now instead of just being able to deduct $10,000 in state and local tax, you may be able to deduct up to $40,000 in state and local tax. And that for you make a big impact on your bottom line.
No,
Other folks, small business owners and seniors are going to see a big change likely as well.
okay. What are some common mistakes that you see people make?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll stick with two. The most common mistake we see people make with their taxes here at H&R Block is that they have life changes and they don't account for those on their tax returns. They buy a home and they don't realize, hey, I may be able to deduct some of these things. They have a child or they get married and they don't think about their filing status or the new credits they can claim. So life changes equal tax changes. And a lot of times people fail to account for that. And because of that, they leave money on the table. The other one is there's millions of people each year, I'll say millions of dollars left on the table each year by people who simply don't file a tax return because they don't meet the federal filing requirement. But what they don't realize is if they filed, they'd probably be due a refund. And for some of those folks, a really nice refund.
Well, interesting.
Yeah.
And I guess they can go to the H&R Block website and kind of figure all this out. This is free. You don't even have to pay for that. So you could just go
Right.
check it all out there. Now, if someone has never filed electronically, what are the benefits of doing that, and what are the first steps that they should take?
Okay, so you kind of have two options. You file via paper, you think you stick it in the mail and you send it to the IRS. A lot of us used to do that for many, many years. Now, the vast majority of Americans do what we call e-file, or they submit their return electronically to the IRS. Puts their return through some real-time verifications on the IRS side to make sure they didn't make any mistakes. But more importantly, it makes their tax return processing so much more efficient. For people that are filing by paper, they're waiting several weeks, if not months, to get their refund. And this year, it's particularly important because the IRS has gone through a lot of change between last tax season and today. And so electronic filing is really important to ensure that your return is processed as quickly and efficiently as possible and you get your refund. The first step to doing that is preparing it electronically. right? Either working with a tax professional or doing it through an online program. And then you just have to take a couple steps, like make sure you have your prior year adjusted gross income. So you always want to have your prior year tax return handy. One, you can make sure, hey, I had that last year. Why isn't it there this year? Or you can show it to your tax professional and they can do that. But there's also information you're going to need off there, like last year's adjusted gross income, bank account information that'll help you prepare and get ready this year.
Okay, great tips, Andy. Thank you so much. And I know it's going to be a busy time for a lot of Americans, so thanks for all your tips.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.